So, hi everyone. Welcome to our DPI Presents. And today we are talking to Monica. She is one of my novel sisters, a National Association of Women Business Owners, but she is in the sweet lane of brilliance when it comes to financial planning and management. And so I will have Monica introduce herself.
I'm so happy to be here and thank you. Your words are always so kind. I can't, they always take me by surprise and they're always so beautiful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I am Monica Roca-Quesada. I'm the owner and founder of Agile Planners. We are what I like to call an accounting technology firm. While we do traditional services such as bookkeeping, we do specialize on with companies that are more in the tech space. So e-commerce sellers, people that are selling on multiple platforms, things of that nature. And what we also offer fractional CFO services, and this is kind of what I'm most passionate about is helping businesses stay in business, right? It's quite an interesting space to be in because at this point in time, I feel like you need an accounting team, right? You have your bookkeeper, you have your tax accountant, you need what I call your CFO, which is more of like your forward officer. When you think about it, we're thinking about where you're going, right? And sometimes you need a tax strategist depending on where you are in the longevity of your business, right? So love to have these conversations.
Yeah, I love that you gave us a little bit of like your background and how you serve your clients and prospective clients, but then also why you are so passionate about the CFO services, which I get excited about. I feel that my road from being in corporate into entrepreneurship, I didn't see as much kind of predicting of trends and patterns in financial management and the forward thinking. And then along comes my introduction to Monica, and I saw that piece inside of you. And it is so important as we are navigating a very volatile economic environment, with it being a general election year, and there can start to be a lot of disruption in the marketplace. But tell us, Monica, one thing, and I'm just so honored to have you, but one thing that you can help debunk, like a financial myth that some entrepreneurs might have, that you're just going to debunk for us here on today.
So I guess one of the things, when we talk about businesses, I think what I hear the most, right, is that everyone is so focused on top line revenue. Like I grossed $1 million or all these things, and that's great. But when we talk about longevity of business, really what we need to talk about is how much cash are you keeping, right? Like if at the end of the day you grossed $1 million, but your net profit is $2,000, right? Like why are we doing this,
Mhm.
right? Like these are the things, these are the conversations that we need to have. And for me, I'm just really passionate about changing that narrative, right? Like I want to walk into rooms and talk about what is your net profit, right? I want to talk about how much money are we keeping, right? Like I believe I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago, the SBA has always said that like less than half of businesses will stay in business for 5 years, right? And that number is actually going up. And what I find interesting about that, it's not because we're not generating sales, right? Like there's money being made, there's money transacting. We're just not keeping it, right? And those are the things that we just don't talk about.
Yeah, those are I love that you said that, because I can't tell you how many times I am working with business owners, and the top line revenue is the focus. Hey, I want to make whatever the number is, seven, eight, nine, figure income. And I'm always like, yeah, you can be making that and like kind of losing it right out the back door. So I love that you brought that up. That is definitely where we are aligned. So we're taping this and we're almost at the end of second quarter. By the time this shows to our audience, we will be in the midst of third quarter. And it is important to always kind of have that reflective piece of where have we been, what has worked well, what are some go-to metrics that like every business owner must have the opportunity to look at, and review and analyze and be able to apply to their business. What key metrics do you just love?
So for me, it's more about like the revenue drivers. I think we don't really talk about that, right? We talk about revenue, we talk about top line revenue, but we don't talk about what drives that revenue, right? Especially in the small business space. We see it more with marketing if you have pay-per-click ads and things are monitoring their spend. But when you're a service-based business, I don't feel that it's the same. I don't know that we're monitoring leads or conversion. Things like retention rate, right? Like, are customers one-time buyers? Are they coming back again and again? Um, what's your purchase frequency rate or even your average purchase transaction, right? Like those are all key metrics to driving revenue. And that's where the data is important. That's where we really can see an impact, right? Like I I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk to a lot of business owners that are like, I'm networking and I'm meeting people. And I'm like, that's great. But are we tracking, right? Are we tracking how many people did we meet? Are we tracking our conversations? Even if we're having even if we're working with a marketing company, like it's not enough to work with a marketing company. We really have to understand
Mhm.
what's happening, right? Like, I see these marketing campaigns that are bringing in the leads, right? But if we're not converting them,
Yes.
right? Or we're not being positioned in front of the right audience, like that has such a huge impact on our numbers.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, that takes me back to my retail days where there were traffic counters for every single store, and you're looking at how many items per transaction and how many people you're converting every hour on the hour. And these were the discussions that we were having literally every hour. That's how important those metrics were. So I absolutely agree with you. As we think about the financial reports, and this is sometimes it can feel intimidating. I think there's no one that is more intimate in a business than a financial manager, whether it's the bookkeeper or the accountant or the tax specialist or the CFO. But what are the financial reports that, if we don't learn anything else, that we need to be attuned to? Because I know that there's a lot of business owners that will look at a bank account and look at their balance and decide, is my business healthy or not? And that is truly not an indicator of whether it's a healthy business. So what are the financial reports that you will review with your business owners?
So I feel like everyone is familiar with an income statement with the profit and loss, right? Like, so we're definitely monitoring our revenue, cost of sales, and our expenses. The balance sheet, for whatever reason, gets no love. I love to talk about this, right? No one really pays attention to the balance sheet, but that is the health of your business. That lets you really know your business worth, how much people owe you, how much money you have, how much you owe debt. All these things, all these metrics are on there. And I feel like when you're not looking at them together, that's the biggest challenge, right? Because sure, we want to know how much money we brought in and how much money we're spending. There's a lot of conversation, especially with startups, on burn rate. How much money are we going through every month, right? But there's a lot of items that don't live on a P&L, like debt, for instance, distributions. How much money am I taking, right? So I have a lot of conversations with business owners like, there's money coming in, but where did it go? Right? And those answers lie on the balance sheet, which I think is one of those things. And then, obviously, the statement of cash flows is another super important report for you to monitor changes in your assets and liabilities. But I think when you work with someone specifically to understand it, that's where the magic happens. When we start looking at what do you want to do long term about paying off debt, we see that a lot now with, EIDL payments that are pretty high. Um, it's really hard right now to get lenders to give you a line of credit, right? Like, and that's what they're looking at. They're looking for a healthy balance sheet. And so making sure that these numbers make sense and sitting down and discussing them is so important.
I think what I love about your company and its ability is really to tell the story of the numbers, which has always been for me. I don't need to just see numbers at face value. I want someone that is able to show the story behind the numbers, and then my goals, you're helping me understand how I'm able to get there. I agree with you as one who partners with a lot of businesses that are looking for funding. It has become much more difficult to really be a bankable business at this point. And so I think there has to be creativity in funding. I think to your point, one of the things that I find that business owners overlook is, um, are they bringing in new clients? Because they could have, great retention, and they haven't really changed or understand how buying behaviors have changed. So there's great retention, but is that new client acquisition that sometimes that number, which lenders are looking for to make sure there's a healthy business, that they might struggle with. But, we can go on and on about
Well,
the
and that goes back to the revenue drivers, right?
yeah.
Like we just can't look at how much money's coming in. We need to understand where it's coming from, right? Like where are new customers coming from? How are they buying, right? The world is very different than it was 4 years ago. And some of our marketing efforts haven't changed, right? And so when you sit down and really dive into that, it can be very eye-opening. Um, and to your point of it being an intimate process, right? Letting someone in, there's a little bit of, I don't want to look under the hood of what's happening because it's working, right? Um, I love to challenge that idea, right? Because these small little tweaks, like sometimes it's not, like I often talk about 15 or 16 different drivers that can affect your
Yes.
business. Um, Man, if you tweak one,
Mhm.
you have a change. But if you start talking about two or three, what an impact it has, right? And it's those conversations that are moving the needle, right? Like, and it's hard to be a small business owner. I think that's something that we also don't talk about, right? It can be lonely.
Yeah.
And you can have a team of people and they may not be the right people to have the conversation with, right? But having those conversations is just so important.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed, and I always will help educate business owners on, and I want you to do this for me, a bookkeeper, accountant, a CFO. When and where should I kind of like, at what stage of business should I hire? What's the difference between the three roles in a business? Because it is truly, and you said this, it is an accounting team that you need to have within your business to help you get to where you're looking to go.
Right. So working with a bookkeeper, I think it's important that we also own where we are, right? Like I often joke, no one gets into business to do the bookkeeping. Like it's just, no one
You
wants
did at first.
that. Well, yeah, right. Me because I love it, right? But having a bookkeeper, when you think about it, they're actually working on the past, right? These are transactions that have happened, or they're present day. Let's say they're more present, right? They're doing your day to day, and they are choreographing the story, getting the information together, right? Your tax accountant is really working on the past. They're typically looking at last year, right? Um, or they could be possibly working on the future if we're talking about financial planning and tax strategy, right? But when you and that's the thing, right? Because there are different types of advisory
Yeah.
service, right? And there are a lot of accounting professionals now that say that they're offering advisory or CFO services, and that's kind of like it's interesting. It is a very interesting space to be in because it's almost like being a business consultant, right? Like, where do you specialize? What are you doing? It is a specialized service, right? So when you work with a CFO, in my opinion of it is a forward-facing position. Like, where do you want to go? How
Mhm.
much money do we need to make this year? How much is our net profit? What is our cash flow? Do we have a healthy cash flow, right? Um, and making those changes to make sure that we are.
Mhm.
In addition to that, what is your end game to your business, right? Some of us want to have empires, some of us want to build and sell, right? What is some people, I got asked this question the other day by someone in the financial space. They're like, do you ever, do you think you'll sell your company? I'm like, I don't know. I think I'll do this for the rest of my life in some form some
Yeah.
capacity, right? So what is your exit plan? You know, sometimes we think we'll leave it to our to our kids or somebody in the family, but what does that look like? What's your 1 year plan, your 3 year plan, your 5 year plan, right? Thinking about aligning your business and your personal goals, right? Like a lot of times we'll talk to business owners that are a little bit behind in the game in the sense of like, oh, I want to buy a house this year. Well, we should have been working on that strategy maybe 2 years ago to make sure that we're going to get appropriate lending, all these things, all these things are so important, right? So your team will help get everything in order. Absolutely. So bookkeeping, if it's not your forte, I would say definitely invest in having someone help you with these services. And if it is something that you feel that you can do yourself, then I think a review is always important, right? And don't wait. A lot of times we wait till we meet with the tax accountant to review things, and that might be a little bit too late, especially if we filed an extension. Or like at this point, we can't make changes, right? Like, so I would say start having these conversations by third quarter, right? To make sure that we can make any changes if we need to, right? Um, there's a lot of things that can be done, and there's so many different people that can help do this, right? So
Yeah.
asking questions is the most
Yes.
important
Yeah, exactly. I know that you are known for transforming businesses. I've seen you come in and be able to get people moving in a different direction, giving them a different perspective, helping them understand where that revenue is coming from, and then building strategies on the different categories that they might have in their business. So just let us know um, what is it like to work with you? Because I think you are so different than anything I've ever seen in the marketplace. And I've seen a lot of financial analysts and managers and, bookkeepers. And I mean, I've seen the gamut, but I think there's such a differentiating factor with your business. So talk to us about what is it like to get started with you, working with you.
Rosalind, you were just so kind. I promise you really are. Thank you for that. I think what sets us apart is how passionate we are about helping businesses, right? We're passionate about having the conversations. We really jump in there and get to know the business owner as well as how things work. We get to know the team. We spend time making sure that we know how things work. We're not in there to tell you what to do. We're in here to learn, to see what's happening first, and then see where there's opportunity for change, right? And I think that traditionally the accounting world has been very structured. We do things this way and this way only, right? And I think I noticed early on that that isn't the way that the world works. I learned a lot from business owners that would show me all these different spreadsheets of how they were measuring the success of their business. And there's power in that, right? There's power in understanding what is driving the business from the business owner's perspective, not just the financial metrics, right? But what are they doing to move the needle? How do they reach out and get leads? How do they convert clients? And then when we can translate that into numbers, that's where we see the transformation.
I love that. I know that you are a business owner of two businesses, so tell us about the difference between planners and also your FinOps.
So Agile Planners is more of a service-based business, right? So we work with businesses and helping them grow and change, whether that's in the accounting space, in the CFO space. FinOps was born because there are so many different applications that are available to integrate data, but we really wanted to build a platform where we could integrate all of these different services, right? So there's a lot of challenge in reconciling data, right? So when we think about, I often say that I think every business right now is an e-commerce business, right? Like when you think about even how a professional service company takes payments, right? Like there's opportunity for buy now, pay later, all these different implementations, all these things. You can typically have an application on your phone and take payments and do things, right? So making sure that all of that information gets to your financial software is so important, and making sure that we have a system of checks and balances to make sure that we didn't leave anything on the table. And that's what FinOps does. FinOps, not only does it integrate with accounting softwares, but it also gives us metrics, KPIs, dashboards, and all that fun stuff where we can put that information in front of the people that make the decisions so that they
Mm.
can make real-time decisions.
I love that because many times, you know, our business owners are paying for these platforms. There's incredible analytics that are there that is built into these platforms, and they're not using them. A lot of times their information is scattered. So they might have sales information here, marketing information there, and, you know, kind of SEO. And so the fact that you're kind of able to bring it all together to paint one full picture is why I am so honored that I was able to introduce you to our audience. So let us know how we can get in touch with you as we wrap. Your website. Also, we can follow you on social media. You're doing webinars. I know you have an upcoming webinar this afternoon, but tell us how we can get in touch with you.
So all of the information about Agile Planners is definitely on the website, which is agileplanners.com.
Mhm.
Everything is broken down by different services, but I would encourage anyone who just wants to have a conversation to just book a let's chat. I love to talk to business owners. Like, this is our passion. And so if there's a question you want to ask me, please reach out. Definitely reach out and book a call.
Love that. Your intentionality, your passion. Thank you so much, Monica, for being with us. And all of that information will be in the show notes. So, to our audience, whether it's day, night, or afternoon, enjoy the space that you're in.